Ansible is a very powerful configuration management tool that you should have in your platform engineering toolbox. In this video, I will walk you through how to use it to configure an EC2 instance, to install Docker and run Jenkins inside a container. I'll use Terraform to create the EC2 instance and Ansible to configure it. As a bonus, at the end, I'll show you how to use the new Env0 Ansible template to do the same thing I built with the CLI. Let's get started. Let's start our demo, and we need to create an EC2 instance. Let's do that with Terraform. So change directory to Terraform, then run Terraform init, Terraform apply, and we're going to auto approve this. I don't want you to do this in production, but just for the demo is fine. You can see we're going to create 11 resources, and these resources are a VPC, we got a TLS private key, AWS subnet, we have AWS security group, we have a route table association, a route table, AWS key pair, internet gateway, and of course our AWS instance, which is the EC2 instance as well. We have an elastic IP also that we're going to be able to access the machine publicly. Okay, so we let this run. It's going to take about 2 minutes or so, and it has successfully completed. We see our outputs, private key, public IP, and a DNS URL basically to access our machine. So next we want to prepare our Ansible file. And to do that, we just need to update our placeholder that we have inside of the Ansible inventory file. So the Ansible inventory file here, you can see we have the Ansible user is Ubuntu, Ansible Python interpreter is Python 3, and we have this Jenkins group of machines, and this one we're going to call Jenkins VM. Ansible host, we need the IP address to be populated here. So to do that, we're going to simply run this command, the set command, that is going to grab the output from Terraform and place it into our file here. You can see it's been updated with that Terraform output IP address. So that looks great. And then we want to prepare the SSH key to be able to give that key to Ansible to SSH into the machine and start to run our playbook. So once again, to do that, we're going to run Terraform output. This time we're going to place the keyball folder, and we're going to call it mykey.pem. Let's change the permissions on the key. And now let's change our directory into Ansible. And now we can run our Ansible playbook. And this should get our machine all set to go. Notice in the Ansible playbook command, we have Ansible playbook, and then we're referencing the private key that we just created to access the EC2 instance. And we're referencing the inventory file with the -i flag. And then we're using our playbook.yaml file. So if we let this run for a bit, it's going to go through the different steps. So it's gathering facts, it's installing pip3 and unzip, and we can see all that in the playbook. Is to access remote machine. Here's the playbook. And as you can see, we have hosts all. We're going to access every machine in the inventory file. We only have one, so it doesn't really matter. If we wanted to access only the Jenkins ones, we could specify Jenkins here instead of all. Become user is root, become true. So we're going to be root user as we go through these different tasks. We have multiple tasks here. The first one, as you can see, it's running on the left-hand side in the console, and on the right side, I'm just showing the playbook. So installing pip3 and unzip, we're using apt, updating the cache, installing the 2 packages that we need. We're registering this as a result. And we have this condition until result is not failed. We can retry multiple times. And this happens because sometimes apt locks. So we want to make sure that our playbook doesn't fail. So we're making sure that the lock is released and continue. Next, we are looking to add the Docker GPG app key. So we're going to install Docker on this EC2 instance. And we are getting the app key. We're getting the Docker repository, the apt repository right here. And then we are looking to install Docker CE with apt. So here we go. Apt name Docker CE, getting the latest, updating cache true. And then installing Docker module for Python. We're using pip. And we see name is Docker. Then we're pulling the Jenkins Docker image. I'm giving it a Docker image down here, the name of the Docker image. We're pulling it. And then we're changing some file ownership and group permissions for this particular file, the home Ubuntu Jenkins data, to have the owner as Ubuntu and group Ubuntu, and it's recursive. And then you can see we're creating the Jenkins container. We're going to call it Jenkins, and we're using the image that we just pulled, and we're starting it, and we're exposing 2 ports, port 8080 and 50,000 on the local machine that correspond to the ports inside the Docker container. And we're also tying in volumes. We're tying in the volume inside the EC2 instance to the actual volume inside the container, to that file here where we're storing the Jenkins data. And on the left-hand side, we see that everything has completed successfully. You can see everything in yellow. That means it has changed, that something new has occurred. So at the bottom here, we have a summary. It tells us OK equals 9, changed equals 8, 0 unreachable, 0 failed, 0 skipped, 0 rescued, 0 ignored. And to show you that this is idempotent, meaning that if I run the command again, there's no harm in doing that. Ansible is going to go in and double check to make sure every one of these steps has been completed. And if it hasn't been completed, it will go out and complete it. So we can run this command as many times as we need to. In fact, I do that a lot as I'm developing the playbook to get things going. So you can see that everything is okay. Okay, 9, 0 has changed. We can now jump in and take a look at the Jenkins container. So once again, if I look at the inventory file that we had from before, I should have the IP address here. So I can take this IP address and we can open a browser window and can put in the IP address :8080. That should take us to our Jenkins instance. And as you can see, we need a password, and the password is stored in the var Jenkins home secret. So we can grab this password by going back to our Visual Studio Code, and we can SSH into the machine remotely. All we need to do is run SSH and Ubuntu at the IP address, and make sure we're referencing our key here to be able to SSH. And there we are. We are inside the machine right now. And if I run ls, I can see Jenkins data is right here. I can go in and go under the secrets folder and look at initial admin password. And I see this is the password. So I can take that and go back. And now I'm inside. I can install some plugins, or I can just skip through them. So I can unselect everything here. So just to move faster, and let's skip, use the admin, save and finish. And we can go ahead and start using Jenkins. So we saw how easy it is to stand up a machine with Terraform and use Ansible to do all the configuration management. We installed Docker and a few other libraries and software. We were able to pull down a container and run the container. The container happens to have Jenkins in there. And now let's see how we can use env0 with a template for Ansible to be able to do the same thing we did through the CLI. So I have a project already that I created, and I called it Ansible tutorial. And I can go ahead and create a new environment based on a template. This template that I've also created, I'll show you what it looks like. It has the Ansible template selected here. I gave it a name, and you can select a specific Ansible version or leave it at the latest. You also need to specify your SSH key here. So the SSH key that we have here corresponds to the private key that we just generated with Terraform that I showed you earlier. So just copy that and paste it here. You can generate a new one like this, and you can give it a name and put the value. Next is we need to tie this to our GitHub repository and also specify the folder In this case, the Ansible folder where we have our playbook. Next, we have our variables, and here we have our Ansible _ CLI inventory variable. This is an environment variable, and it is telling Ansible what the name of our inventory file is. In this case, it's inventory. And of course, we've tied this to our project and an Ansible tutorial. So now let's jump into our project and run or create a new environment based on this template. Run now. Okay, click run. You can see deploy is in progress. It's cloning our repo, getting working directory, looking for any env0 YAML file, loading variables, setting our version. We're running with 10.3.0. We're skipping Ansible Galaxy. We're not pulling anything from there. And then the playbook is running. And you'll see that everything is okay because everything is already installed through the CLI, right, that we created earlier. So we should not see anything different here. And then it's asking us to either approve or cancel this run. Let's click approve. And now we see the Ansible playbook is running. The same steps that we saw in the diff version. And that's it. Our deployment has succeeded and it is active. You can go back to the deployment logs if you'd like. That shows you how easy it is to use the new Ansible template in env0 to do exactly what we did on the CLI, but of course with the added benefits that env0 gives you. One thing we could have done with env0 is create a workflow and have a template that will create the EC2 instance with Terraform. And then once that's complete, it will start Ansible to go ahead and configure our EC2 instance. So we can have everything automated in one place here in env0. Hopefully this has been an overview for you to understand a little bit about Ansible and get you started and see its capabilities with this sample demo. Thanks for watching.